Good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Whiteley from Envisage, and welcome to another of our Friday morning webcasts. This one's been recorded and will be available hopefully on YouTube later today. The title of this webcast today is Autodesk Showcase, an introduction for Inventor users. First of all, I'm going to go into Showcase and start importing a model. That gives us a few minutes to go through a couple of slides in Showcase. So I'm just going to start a new scene within Showcase software, and then I'll explain more about where it's available, where you can get it, and so on. We have available to us sample scenes that you can have a play with in Showcase, and have a play and see what you can do with these. Also, if you want to create a new scene, the new scene can be based on certain backdrop images which are available to you. There are loads more available within the software. I'm just going to use a general purpose white background. And then what files do we want to bring in? Well, Showcase supports many file formats and of course the Autodesk files as CAD products as well, so 3D AutoCAD models, Inventor models, 3D Revit models, alias surface models, files from 3D Studio and so on, and other files from various third-party file CAD formats as well. I'm going to bring in an Inventor model, and we'll bring in a bevel gear assembly. This enables us to adjust the quality of the meshing that's created from Showcase's import. The 3D models that we're importing are converted to a mesh within Showcase, and then they are rendered. So I'm just going to use an all-purpose option here, and we'll start importing that and carry on with the slideshow. Okay, so new in the Showcase that's available at the moment is the fact that yes, we can support Revit and AutoCAD with Autodesk materials coming through to the Showcase software. We've got the graphical processor enables us to have interactive shadows on our 3D renders. They've increased the speed of the software. They've given us a lot of wizards that we can run through to help us guide us through using the Showcase software. Inventor, it will automatically set up animation files and shots, which we'll go through later on. And an important enhancement in this release is the fact that the ambient shadows within the rendered image are actually automatic. We don't have to wait for those to be created anymore. Who has Showcase? Well, any of you with any of the design suites, you will have Showcase available to you. It can be purchased separately, but if you've got Factory Design Suite, Product Design Suite, Design Suite or Building Design Suite, you'll have Showcase in the software. If you haven't got it on your machine, then it needs to be installed from the USB stick that you get with the Design Suites. Okay, so let's go back to Showcase. It's imported our model. Turn a few things off. Okay, so there's our model imported into Showcase. The red hatching on the 3D model is a way of showing Showcase whether parts have been selected or not. If I left click away from that assembly, they disappear. Okay, I'm just going to go to Visual Styles a second, and we'll have shaded available to us. Right. Okay, now I'm going to try and do things slowly because I understand that we're doing this across the internet, and I'm trying to get the color as high as quality as I can across the internet. So I'll try and move things slowly. We have got some flashing of the cursor which will force me to do that anyway. So the first thing that you'll probably find when a model comes into Showcase is it may be the wrong way up. So we can actually go back into the import status window by pressing I on the keyboard and just right click on the model and go to its properties And then we can tell it, well, what's the original up axis? Well, it's used Y, plus Y is the default at the moment. If I just click on plus Z and close that, and then close my import status window, you'll notice that now the model's the way up that I want it to be on the screen. However, you will notice that it's not on the floor at the moment. There is a distance, a gap between the model and the shading. So if I just go to the Edit pull-down menu, Set Floor Position, we can actually move the floor position to the bottom of the model. And that automatically moves the environment, which I'll explain to you and talk a little bit more about in the next few minutes. But that moves the environment up to the bottom of the model. Okay, it's brought the materials across from Inventor. You can add Showcase materials, which I would ask you to try and do because you get much better quality renders from the Showcase materials. So if I press M on the keyboard, that'll bring the materials dialog up. It'll show me what materials I have in the scene already, and I have available to me other materials from the Showcase library. I'm going to use car paint in this case, and if we just select the top cover, and we'll make that one green, and the main body, and we'll choose yellow or something. Okay, just to give it a bit of brightness on the screen and the video. If I select a material, use Control M on the keyboard, that'll bring up the material properties, and we're able to adjust these, the colors, highlights, ambient shadows and so on, environment lighting overrides and so on. So for instance, if I wanted to add highlights to my color, I can just choose, let's just move the slider up a bit. We can then just choose different colors to highlight my material, dynamically changing on the model, as you can see, as I select these materials. Okay, there's some materials selected. Let's have a look at some shots. Now, shots in Showcase are movements, predefined movements that you set up. And you'll notice that we've got a few here already. And this is because the Inventor to Showcase import has converted these or created these for us automatically. So if I go to default, for instance, there's our default shot, ISO. It's a bit low, I can adjust it. So if I move this, by the way, Showcase does support the 3D connection devices. I'm not using them today because I don't want to dynamically move the model too quickly because that will give us problems with delays on the broadband connection. So there's my ISO view. I've just adjusted it slightly, and I can now right-click on the shot, go to its properties, and reset the position. It also does a grab for the screen for the thumbnail for us as well. So now if I click on ISO, I get that particular shot, front, top, orbit. Yeah, well, orbit is fine. It's doing an orbit for us. It starts at one position, ends at another, and does an interpolation between the two. But I'm not seeing all of the design there. So what we could do is we can adjust this. If I go to the properties, I can adjust this. And what I'm going to do, instead of using orbit, I'm actually going to say, well, I'm going to have a start and end, i.e. 2 frames, 2 keyframes. So I'm going to start at that particular frame, reset the start to there, turn it around, reset the end. If we play that, that'll give us a slightly different movement. I could reduce the time taken to go from one frame to another. We've got crane up and left. And if we look down further, we've got a right view and a front view and so on. So there's loads of different shots that we can create. I'm going to do another one and create one from scratch. In fact, I'll probably delete some of these to give us a bit of room because of the low resolution that I'm running at. So we'll create a new shot. I'll do a start to end shot where we're going to start at the position that you can see on the screen now, and perhaps go to the right view and zoom in to the assembly, and we'll reset that at the end. I'll have this as 10 seconds. I'm going to go from, or fade from black into this particular shot, and that will fade over a second, whilst it's moving from this start position to this end position, and we'll have a duration of 10 seconds for this particular animation. So if we click on the shot, it'll fade from black, move from one position to another over the 10-second period. Okay, so that's some shots set up. Let's go back to the ISO one. Now then, the backdrop. I'll play around with these later on, but we'll just very quickly have a look at these scene settings. And the scene is actually a high definition range image. It's an HDRI image. And the idea of these images, if I just change to something different, let's have a look what we got here. A white room, that'll do. Oh no, let's go to this one, tech. Okay, if I zoom out, you'll notice we got a domed shaped image, and this is one of these HDR images, and the idea is that the lighting and the shadows come from this image, so you don't actually have to do much with lighting or in shadows. In fact, you don't have to do much at all. But I would like to change the size of the backdrop in relationship to my model, so now I can go to my file pull-down menu and scene settings and change the environment to a little bit smaller in relationship to the model. So if we just zoom out, this slider, I can change the environment size in relationship to my model, and then as you can see, the floor has changed size, and it gives us a much more manageable scene to work with. We'll work with other environments later on, but I really want to get on to some more work with the assembly. So first, we've imported it from Inventor, we've added some shots. Let's do some cross-sectioning. So X on the keyboard to create some cross-sections. I'm going to select a couple of parts in my assembly, and I'm going to create a cross-section plane. Okay, we'll change the properties of the plane because I want the section to be red. We'll see that in a minute when we animate it. Whoops. Also, I want to rotate this plane around an axis. So by going to Edit and Show Transform Handles, we can put the transform handles onto this plane, and you'll see these transform handles in the middle of the screen here. These will enable us to transform linearly or by a rotation this particular plane. So I want to rotate this so I can see through the vertical half of this. So I'm going to click on one of the rotation grips, put in 90 degrees, press return, and that now sets the cut plane up, or the slice plane, to vertical. Now it's not slicing through everything I need. I also want to slice through some other components. Just take off the transform handle. No, we'll leave the transform handle on for the moment. So what I'm going to do is add extra parts for my assembly to this plane. Now, if I select, if you can just see the arrow, this component here, the black one, what's actually happening is it's selecting the yellow outer body instead. Now I want to pick through this. So a tip I can give you with Showcase is if you right-click, you've got an Objects Behind option. That then lets you choose objects behind that then I can add to this plane, and now it sections that plane, that body with a plane. Let's take this other black component here, select that, it takes the wrong component. So objects behind, find the relevant body, add that to the plane, and last but not least this shim, again objects behind, select the shim and add that selection to the plane. So now we're sectioning more components with this slice plane. I'll just bring it to the front, and now we'll take off the grips. We don't need those. Okay, the plane can be turned off in a second as well. Right, now let's add some behaviors. So the idea of behaviors are I can move things within Showcase. Now I want to move this section plane through the assembly. So we're going to behaviors, B on the keyboard, and we'll create a keyframe animation. Now Before we do that, I need to select the plane. So let's go ahead and select the plane, because that's what I'm going to animate. I'm going to animate this across the model. Go to Create Keyframe Animation. We're going to click on Choose and add the section plane to the keyframe. And then, with the transform handles pressed on, I'm going to send this across the assembly and add that as a keyframe point in time. It adds it as a second. I'm going to move it across to 3 seconds. And if I go to Playback Controls, I can now play this behavior and move the slice backwards and forwards through the assembly. Okay, so I'm animating the slice plane. Good, so that's my behavior sorted. We'll now turn off, under Options, we can turn off the cross-section grip. So that's my behavior, my keyframe done. But what's great in Showcase is actually we can set up triggers. So if you're presenting an assembly to somebody, whether it's management internally or a customer externally, you're able to open this up in Showcase and with triggers set up, trigger an animation in your assembly, whether it's a slice or a rotation or something, you can trigger it. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll select the top component as my trigger model for doing the slice. We'll create our 3D trigger. And then we'll associate this trigger with that behavior I've just created. And I'm going to play forward from start. In other words, play it forward. That will slice to the middle of the component, to the assembly. Secondly, we'll have the yellow component as a trigger. But this time, this is going to be associated again to the same behavior, but playing backwards from the end. So if we just check these, I can execute the trigger for slicing forwards and execute the trigger for slicing backwards. Okay, so that's the triggers set up. Now if I go into presentation mode, now what presentation mode does is it stops you accidentally selecting parts and highlighting them in blue. It stops you editing things. So it's quite useful for somebody to go out with a laptop with Showcase on, put it into presentation mode. All they can really do is rotate the model. They can run triggers and show alternatives and so on. Alternatives being alternate colors or alternate configurations of assemblies, which I'm not going to cover in this particular webcast. I want to do an advanced showcased webcast later on, whereby we do things like showing alternative assemblies or alternative colors and various other things that take Showcase a step further. But because of time, I want to do the basic stuff for you as an Inventor user to use Showcase. Okay, now if I move over to the green component, you'll notice it says, well, that one triggers trigger 1, and the yellow component, that one triggers trigger 2. They could obviously be renamed. If I click on the green one, it now runs that trigger. If I click on the yellow one, it runs that trigger. So if you've got a machine with a door and you want to open the door, then obviously in this case you could just click on the door. It would then perhaps open the door or slice through your assembly or something like that. So these triggers are really useful to show your design to somebody in a true presentation mode. Now you'll notice that all this animation is done in real time. So unlike software whereby you've got to wait for 30 frames a second to be animated, Showcase uses the power of the graphics card to give you real-time animation, real-time graphics, without having to wait lunchtime or overnight for an animation to be created. This is all real-time. What is also available to you is if you want to pass this on to sales guys or marketing people, there is a Showcase viewer that is free to download that will enable you to view these models and run them in presentation mode. Okay, so let's have a look at the visual styles that are available to us. I'll just come out of presentation mode, otherwise I can't change anything. So the visual styles that we have, at the moment I'm working in shadows and ambient shadows being displayed on the screen. If I click on no shadows, obviously it does what it says on the tin. We get no shadows at the bottom. We can just have ambient shadows, which are the shadows within the model itself, shadows to the floor or the environment, and then everything shown, which is what we normally use. If you want very, very high quality single rendered images, then use ray tracing. I'm not going to run it now. It takes about a minute to run through. Don't move your model while you're ray tracing, because ray tracing just takes a shot of what you've got on the screen and works on that. As soon as you move the model, it'll start the ray tracing again. But ray tracing will give you a very, very high quality image that you can export out to whatever file format you require. There are also abstract finishes you can add. So for instance, tech, abstract rendering, realistic, with edges shown, shaded, and then various abstract colors that you can work from there. The diagnostic one is useful. Ambient shadows. Now this shows you the ambient shadows within the model. This takes all the shading off and colouring off and just purely shows you where the ambient shadows are on your design. And you can adjust this, which I'll show you how to do that in a minute, by moving shadows about, and then this gives you a better quality shaded image later on. So let's go ahead and have a look at environment lights and shadows. So we go into Appearance and Environment Lights and Shadows. Now don't worry too much about the horrible dialog box. Well, it's not horrible, there's a lot in there. What I want to do is play around with the lights and shadows. Well, it's very simple. You can move a light or a shadow, and all you've got to do is click on, let's move the shadow, click on Move Shadow, and just drag your mouse around on the screen, and it dynamically changes the shadows on the 3D model. So you can set this up as you want it in your presentation, click on Close, and that's the shadows or lights moved on your assembly. Let's finally in this sequence, have a look at the environment. So we press E on the keyboard. I'm showing you keyboard strokes. I will show you a page at the end with all these keys on. It's much quicker than trying to find them in the pull-down menus. And you can print this off or download it from the YouTube later on. These are the environments I've got in my scene at the moment. I have a number of environments available to me from Showcase. So for instance, if this is a large piece of kit that I want to place by the side of the docks, I can choose docks. It loads up the docks environment, which again is an HDRI image, as you can see. And all the shadows and the lighting come from that dock HDRI image. It's a bit large in relationship to my assembly. So again, I can go to my scene settings and adjust my scene accordingly to give me a better relationship between my assembly and the docks. In front of the trains, there we go. Once we've got this finished, we'll want to save this out to images and animations. So from the File pull-down menu, we can save the image to whatever resolution we want, whatever file type we want, whatever resolution and whatever size we want as well. Alternatively, we can output a movie. Now the movie will output the shots. Now you can output all shots sequentially, or you can choose what shots you want added. So those shots I added earlier, where I was moving from one position to another, we can output to an animation. The animation can be adjusted, how many frames per second we want, what format we want, AVI, Flash, QuickTime Movie, and so on. And importantly as well as saving the movie, we can actually upload this to YouTube should we wish as well. Right, let's just try one last thing. I've got a couple of minutes left. What we're going to do here is see if we can animate the gears inside this. I'll only do 2 of the gears. So the first thing we're going to do is just select, by the way, it's the Shift key to select multiple parts and Control key to select or deselect parts within Showcase. Again, it's on the slide I'll give you at the end. And we'll just hide these parts. Let's hide that one as well. Okay, so we'll have a look at the gears here. What I'm going to do is select the key and the shaft. We go to our behaviors, and instead of creating a key frame animation, I'm actually going to create a turntable. I'm going to move the pivot of the turntable to the objects, that's center it, and I'll move this at, I think it's 5.3 RPM. That's that one done. Next we'll choose the other gear. Again, using the Shift key, select everything else to do with that and create another turntable. This time, of course, clockwise. Move the pivot to the objects, and this one's going to run at 1 RPM. have a look at the playback controls on this one and see what happens when we play that. So that will just rotate that gear at 1 RPM. Okay, that's all well and good. But what I want to do now really is link these two together. So these two behaviors I can actually link together. And then when I play them, it actually plays them as a true animation that you'd expect with the gearbox. Again, that can be triggered and played as you're running a shot. So you could actually record a movie of this happening whilst a shot is in progress, the shot being moving from one position to another. So, superb tool, really, really clever in the fact that you don't have to wait for it to render. It's all real time. It's superb for presenting products to your customers or to your internal management. It's probably one of the best rendering tools and presentation tools that Autodesk have got. You've got it free in your design suite, so please try and use it. One thing I'll just finish off on is these shortcut keys. I've been using these. By all means, play around with it and use the pull-down menus, but these, it's only a few. These shortcut keys are extremely useful in having printed off and to the side of you when you're using Showcase. Shift and middle mouse wheel to orbit, for instance, shift key to add when selected, and so on, and the shortcut keys. You just press the key, you don't press return afterwards. So, thank you very much for your time. Have a good weekend, and I'll hopefully speak to you on the next webcast. There are my contact details if you've got any questions, and thank you very much.